James Ernest of the Gruel and Truth Radio Network here with Tim Wrightman of the Chicago Bears and UCLA. Tim, tell us how you got started in football.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting. I never really wanted to be a football player. I was always, I always said, even when I was little, I was big, so I guess there was potential. But as a kid, I was a baseball player and a soccer player. And playing Pony League baseball, the baseball coach was also the football coach at a little local Catholic school in San Pedro, California, where I grew up. And he talked me into going to school there and playing football, and kind of mentored me. And I mean, it's interesting because even when I first started, I didn't even know how to put the pads in the pants. You know what I mean? It was that green of a situation. And after a couple of years, I guess because of his mentoring and had a great coaching staff in high school, even though it was a little school, that's how it all started.
So what was your baseball career like? Did you end up following up any with that and playing in high school, or?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I played in high school, and unfortunately in high school, the baseball program at my little high school, the head coaches kept changing, and there was no continuity. And football, as you know, in high school usually gets all the fanfare, so it was a lot more fun playing football. And our football team, even like I said, being a little tiny school, it was an all-girls school 2 years before I got there, so there was about 100 boys and about 400 girls, so the odds for getting a prom date were pretty good. But and then our football team just kind of took off and started to become very successful and beating bigger schools. And by the time I left high school, even from this little tiny school, we had about 22 guys on our football team, varsity team. I ended up having about 65 scholarship offers. I was kind of a mama's boy and was going to stay in Southern California, so it came down between USC and UCLA, and I just figured that UCLA, even though my mother wanted me to go to USC, I chose to go to UCLA, and personally it worked out good for me the 4 years that I was there at UCLA.
Nice. I remember reading a quote about she wasn't happy because it was a public school.
My mom said, I didn't work 3 jobs to put you through a private high school so that you could go to a public college. That was her beef with UCLA. And then eventually she came around, of course, was very supportive of me being at UCLA. But she was we were from a community that was very pro-USC, so it was going against the grain to choose to go to UCLA.
Were you always a tight end, or did you play other positions?
I was a tight end my whole career. So I started as a freshman at Little Mary Star, the C High School in San Pedro, as a tight end. But we only had so few players, so I played. I was a linebacker and a defensive tackle. I snapped on punts. I kicked off and kicked field goals and extra points. And it seemed like everybody went both ways because we had so few players on our team. So I got to play a lot of different positions. And that was one of the things that I decided to go to UCLA, is because USC was recruiting me as a linebacker, and I wanted to play tight end. And I figured that if I didn't make it at linebacker at USC, it wasn't like, well, we'll give him a chance at tight end now. I think it would have been linebacker, offensive guard. You know what I mean? I didn't think I would have had a chance of playing tight end at USC, so that was probably one of the reasons why I chose to go to UCLA.
Excellent. So what was the draft process like? Because back then there were the 2 leagues, right?
Coming out of college?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, it had just started. I mean, the USFL had not even played a game yet. They were still building the league. And I was drafted by the Bears in the 3rd round. I was the 62nd player taken. They picked Jim McMahon, the first pick that year, and I was the 2nd pick, but they didn't have a 2nd round, so I was in the 3rd round. And the Bears are notoriously known for being kind of cheap. In fact, Mike Ditka in his days said that, George House threw around nickels like manhole covers. Mm-hmm. So it was typical contract agreement with them. They offer me less money than they did the third-round player of the year before. And so at that time, I had a guy in San Pedro, my hometown, that knew George Allen, the coach of the Blitz, and then also the Washington Redskins and the LA Rams, and then also was the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. And I had a personal connection with him, and he approached me about playing in the USFL, and it seemed like an interesting venture to do it. And one of the things, one of my game plan was to go to the USFL for 2 years. At that time, there was no free agency in the NFL, so the only way that you could become a free agent is if you were out of the league for 2 years. So the idea was to go to the USFL, sign a 2-year contract, and then you could come back to the NFL and negotiate with any team as a free agent. That's what a lot of guys did when they would go to Canada, and then they would come back as a free agent. I decided to go to the USFL. I was the first player signed, major player signed in the league. Went to the Chicago Blitz. I had an injury-filled career with the Chicago Blitz. And then when I came back after my injuries and was looking for any team, nobody wanted to sign me except the Bears. So I took a minimum contract, went to the Bears. My rookie season, we went to the Super Bowl. I doubled my salary my first year with the Bears by my Super Bowl bonuses. And then we renegotiated after that, after I had proven myself and proved that my injuries were behind me, kind of thing.
Nice. What was it like being on that team with all the crazy individuals?
Well, Dick would like to say that we were characters with character, and it was the reason that team, the 1985 Chicago Bears Super Bowl team, is so remembered is because of the fact that we had so many characters on our team, so many personalities, and personalities that could be backed up by play on the field. I mean, it's so remembered because of those personalities that people that even didn't care for football or weren't football fans got interested in that because we did things outside of football. We had a guy that, I think appealed to a lot of women that weren't football fans. We had a guy that was named after a kitchen appliance. We had the fridge. So, and he was kind of a lovable big guy, and people that weren't interested in football liked following him. I mean, I remember for years now, the first thing people remember from that team is the fridge. But we also had 3 Hall of Famers on that team. You had Mike Singletary, Walter Payton, well, actually 4, Dan Hampton, Richard Dent, and 4 guys that are in the Hall of Fame off of that team. But everybody would talk about the fridge, and then the second player they'd want to know about is Jim McMahon. And then doing things like we did as far as off-the-field things, the Super Bowl Shuffle, and so that I think that video sold over 1 million copies that year, and we would have been lambasted for being, the all-time, chokers if we hadn't won the Super Bowl. We did that video at week 13 when we didn't even know really if we'd make the playoffs. Or win in the playoffs. So that was kind of putting your neck out there and doing something bold like that. And I think being on that team, that was one of those things about it, is that we were willing to take those risks, but we could back it up on the field.
Yeah, because you all were pretty close to having an undefeated season. What was it, one of the last games of the year that slipped away?
Yeah, we were 13-0, and then we lost to Dan Marino and the Dolphins on a Monday night down in Miami. And one of the weaknesses I think of the 46 defense is that you have to get to the quarterback before the whole thing was based on getting to the quarterback before he could get rid of the ball. And I think Dan Marino, because of that night, he was able to do get rid of the ball so quick. That was kind of his thing through his career anyway, is getting rid of the ball quickly. And he had a great game that night, and we just we lost that one game that season. And if we would have won that we would have been the last team in NFL history to be undefeated. The New England Patriots came, closer than we did. But I think I'd rather lose a game during the regular season than lose the Super Bowl to be, 18-1.
I agree with you. Yeah, because you don't lose your rings if you lose a regular season game, but you lose them if you.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's funny because I never, in hanging around other pro football players and guys that have played in the Super Bowl and haven't been successful, it's interesting. They don't wear their NFC or AFC championship rings because that's really the loser's ring. You know what I mean? That year. So you don't see a lot of those guys wear the NFC or AFC championship rings.
Exactly. But the only ones who should be doing that are the Bills. I mean, you got 4 of them.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Wear them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because.
And they have 4 of them, don't they?
Yeah, 4 in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Oh, that had to have been rough.
That was a great team. Those 4 years. I mean, they were so dominating, and for whatever reason, couldn't get over the hump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just always seemed something would come up and bite them. So after football, you'd mentioned how the other guys had done a lot of things to get recognition outside of the field. You became an actor.
I did. I actually right after. Well, back up a little bit. When I was playing for the Bears, I was actually doing some stand-up, and I would host the open mic nights at a place called the Improv, which was was in L.A., but then they had one in Chicago as well, and then also a place called the Funny Firm. And on my nights off, which was typically Monday nights, was open mic night, and I would MC the open mic nights and do some stand-up, and kind of fell in love with entertaining or being up on stage. And then I had a little radio show there in Chicago. And after I retired from football, I had worked for ESPN, did a couple college games, and I realized I'm not a big football fan. I liked playing the game, but the work that goes into learning the player, I was doing college games, so each week learning a new 60 players on each side of the ball, their names and their backgrounds and all that stuff, and doing the studying on the film and all that. I realized I'm more of a doer than a viewer, and I enjoyed playing the game. But when I was off the field, I was more goofing around on the sidelines. I never watched the defense. So the guys that are really good at that stuff, a buddy of mine that was a teammate, Tom Thayer, who's the radio color guy for the Bears and has been for years, that guy loved to watch film. He could spend hours in there watching game film from other teams and that sort of thing and breaking it down. I didn't enjoy that. So I did a couple games for ESPN. Then I decided, well, I think I'll try the acting. And I did it, actually made a living at it for about 13 years. Going back home to California, and at the time I was living in Santa Monica and going on auditions. And I ended up doing probably 20 national commercials and about that many or a little more, either co-star or guest starring on different TV shows. Mostly I did comedy, sitcom kind of things. My size, I figured I fell into kind of 3 categories, James. I fell into the category of either I got hit, I hit people, or I was a guy that you never thought was gay but was. So those were my 3 categories. And I kind of realized that my acting career was over, or coming to an end when the casting people do these things called breakdowns where they send it out to all the agents. And one of the they were looking for, in one of these breakdowns, a Tim Wrightman type. Not Tim Wrightman, but a Tim Wrightman type. So I figured, my career's probably close to being over here. And I had kind of gotten bored and tired of Los Angeles and the people and the traffic. And my dad had retired to Idaho. And I started looking at property up there and kind of made a transition, reinventing myself in my early 40s from growing up 2 blocks from the beach and riding a surfboard to now riding a tractor at my place called the Lazy Bear Ranch in Weiser, Idaho.
Nice. What are all the fun things that guests can do there?
Oh, well, I can sleep 10 people. I guess my main focus is I have guys come out and spend time with me, and we pheasant hunt. I guide all the hunts. I've got a beautiful lodge. Like I said, I can sleep 10 people overnight. I have a gal that comes in and cooks and, takes care of all the meals. And people always ask, hey, have you ever had any of your former Chicago Bears teammates out? And now I can actually say yes, because coming this last weekend in April, I'm going to have Jim McMahon out here, and we're going to do for about 8 people, do kind of a business type deal, having business people out. I've actually got 4 spots left if anybody's interested in coming and spending the weekend with Jim McMahon and learning some secrets to success by Jim and how to deal with a temperamental boss like Mike Ditka. I think it's going to be a fun, great weekend, and he's not a hunter, so we're doing it kind of in the off season of hunting. But we're going to come out and have a great weekend with him. He's so much fun. He's one of the weirdest guys I know, but one of the best guys, and was an awesome teammate. And he's one of those interesting guys that you can't reproduce, right? He's one of those guys that is such a great interview, and he's so much fun to hang out. And typically he doesn't do these kind of over weekend things. He'll go in and do a talk and, go to an event and then be there for that one couple hours and then leave. So this is kind of a unique thing that I've got him to come up. He's living in Arizona now, playing a lot of golf, and coming up on that weekend, the last weekend in April. So if anybody's interested in about coming out and spending the weekend with me and Jim McMahon in a beautiful setting, LazyBearRanch.com is how you can get a hold of me.
Excellent. Yeah, I was going to say.
Thank you for letting me plug that, by the way, James.
Hey, no problem. It's my pleasure. Shoot. Yeah, we always love giving the guests the opportunity to get the good word out there about what they're getting into nowadays. And I'm sure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
And the pheasant season, when we have pheasant hunts out here, is typically starts at the end of September and then goes through the first part of winter. So we've kind of expanded here at the ranch and started doing events. This year is the first year we started doing weddings. We've had 2 or 3 weddings under a big one November 4th. And so kind of expanding through that off season to be able to do more year round here and get people to come out. It's on the ranch is 200 acres. My south property line is the Weezer River, which is one of the 10 best smallmouth bass rivers in the country for guys that like to fish. I've got 17 acres of ponds that we stock with largemouth bass and bluegill for people to come out and fish in the spring and summertime. And it's a pretty setting. It's really it's a pretty part of the country, very very kind of arid. High desert with lots of mountains and hills and rivers and creeks coming through from the high country where we get most of our water from snowpack. So it's kind of an interesting thing being here as opposed to where I grew up, a couple blocks from the beach.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a outdoor lover's paradise. I mean, for
yeah, James, we had a big event here, August 21st. It just happened that the ranch was right on the center line of the eclipse, so we had about over 200 people here for the day, and we had people camping over the weekend, and it was a lot of fun. We served breakfast, and the eclipse. I had never seen a total eclipse before, and all the hype of it, but it was so much better than I could have ever expected. It was fantastic, and it was a great experience, and I would actually consider traveling to go to a place to go to see a total eclipse again. It's so different than anything I ever experienced before, and it just happened that the weather was great that day. We had been having, big forest fires up in Canada, and it was blowing the smoke down here, but it was a perfectly clear day. And it was really a terrific experience that looking at it now, I might even think about traveling to go see another one if you can get right on that center line of an eclipse. Have you ever seen a total eclipse before?
I got to see a little bit of the one that they just had. I mean, ours wasn't as good of a view here in Kentucky, but it wasn't bad either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but the difference is getting in totality. You can be the people that were in Boise. I'm about an hour outside of Boise, Idaho. Go Broncos, right?
Yep.
But if you're at 99.8 of the eclipse, it is not anywhere near the total eclipse. So if you ever get a chance to be right on that center line of the total eclipse, you can take your glasses off. It gets totally dark. It's quite an interesting experience. And,
oh wow!
You know, it's one of those things that you can be at, like I said, 99.6, and if it's not 100, the experience is totally different. So
that does sound awesome. Then yeah, because what we had it barely even dimmed a little bit. You didn't notice the difference, but you're right. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So. If some people are interested in seeing some of that stuff, I put it all on the Lazy Bear Ranch Facebook page or Tim Wrightman Facebook page, and we had some people that were out here, like professional astronomers and physicists and all that, and they took unbelievable pictures of it and posted it on there. So if anyone's interested in seeing that stuff, they can check it out there.
That sounds great. So what's the plans for the future?
Well, like I said, is just starting the wedding and event business here at the ranch, trying to just get better, helping people have more fun here, catching bigger and better fish, and trying to just improve on the experience here at the ranch. That's kind of my future goals are. We're doing some reconstruction on one of the ponds, and always trying to plant better habitat. I plant probably close to 50 to 100 trees a year and shrubs for habitat for wildlife, and that's kind of my project, is to get this place in what I imagined my dream, what it was supposed to look like. And my thing is, I don't really hunt that much anymore. When the clients come out, I guide them, and I work my dogs. I have English pointers, and they're just beautiful to hunt behind and try to help people have a good experience and have fun. I like to tell people I'm in the fun business now, so that's what I look forward to doing.
Sounds great. Sounds like an awesome business to be in. So, kind of to summarize, what are the best ways or best places to find more out about your business?
The best way is to go to lazybearranch.com. All the contact info's there. It's a pretty site. It's got lots of pictures and all that. Or I'm on Facebook at Lazy Bear Ranch, or Tim Wrightman. I'm on Facebook too. They can contact me that way.
And you said. Oh, I was going to say, and you said there's still 4 spots for the Jim McMahon event?
It's a weekend. I'm flying in a chef for that weekend. It's the last weekend in April, and it's the April 27th, weekend of April 27th. And I've got some fun things planned for Jim, and people get to ask him questions and kind of hang out with him. And Jim is still a little bit of a partier, which is fun. And and he's a very interesting guy, just his perspective on things and how he accomplished what he did. And, he was a Catholic kid that went to BYU. And that's when I first met Jim. We were on a bunch of All-American teams together, and then we played we were teammates at the Hula Bowl together. And then we roomed a little bit together because we were the first 2 draft picks. And so I've known Jim since I was 22, and he's a great guy, but he's interestingly weird, and in a good way, kind of like Austin, Texas. Keep Austin weird. So,
exactly.
But the best way is to get a hold of me through the ranch, the website of the ranch. And how I came up with the name Lazy Bear Ranch is, of course, UCLA, I was a Bruin, which is kind of a baby bear, and then I became a Chicago Bear, and then I figured, ranches they have names like the Lazy B or the Lazy J Ranch, and so I figured Lazy Bear was kind of appropriate for me, although I've worked harder at this probably than I have any other career, so no laziness going on.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I was gonna say when you're the boss, it makes it tough.
Yeah, like I was telling you earlier that I had plans on going to UCLA this weekend down to LA. They were honoring Kenny Easley, who is one of my teammates at UCLA. He'd just been inducted this year into the NFL Hall of Fame, and they were doing a big gathering for his teammates, UCLA teammates, at the new center there that UCLA has for the coaches and the players' meeting rooms and all that. It's a beautiful building. And they were going to have that on Saturday night. Then all the teammates were going to go to the game yesterday, which the Bruins pulled out in historic fashion, overcoming a 34-point, second half deficit to beat Texas A&M by 1 point with 43 seconds left in the game. They scoring. So, but I couldn't go. The long story is I couldn't go. I had a construction project going on here, and I couldn't leave, so I ended up having to cancel my flight, and that's what you do when you have your own business. You're the bottom line, and you got to be there no matter what. And like you're laboring on Labor Day, and as soon as I get off the phone here, I'll have to go out and do some other stuff going on at the ranch here.
Excellent. Well, Tim, we greatly appreciate having you on the show, and we definitely are going to follow up with the future. If there's any other projects or any other neat things you got going on, like any more bear reunions, that kind of thing, just give us a buzz, and we'll have you back on the show to plug it.
Hey, James, thanks so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure.